Hello there, thrill seekers. Yesterday was Mother's Day, but what do you do if your mother's not around anymore? We'll talk about that after 33 seconds of good music. Alright, thrill seekers, that was a little piece of the song Ghost Riders in the Sky done in honor of all the ghosts of moms who have passed. So, I got a question in the emails, which I just looked at this morning, just before I came out here. Was going to do a totally different video, but I've pivoted and decided to do this instead because I thought this was an interesting question. So I'm not going to read you all of the email, but it's from a guy who says he recently lost his mother. I feel okay, I'm down, but I'm not crying at all. I find that rather strange. I'm wondering if you can direct me to any Zen resources on losing parents, your videos or literature you like. Sorry, I'm reading this wrong. I have been doing the Bardo prayer and want to know your thoughts on it. Reincarnation is slippery. I personally have always thought of it as akin to the law of conservation of energy. I don't resonate with the words of the Bardo exactly, but the ritual is at least something I can do, and I would like to know your thoughts on the Bardo prayer. There is a line in Dogen's Life and Death, which is one of Dogen's most famous essays, about birth having a past and a future and extinction having a past and a future. What do you think is the future of extinction? Alright, yesterday was Mother's Day here in America, and I think they do Mother's Day on different days in other countries, so adjust to your liking. But I had a big Mother's Day blowout with my mother-in-law yesterday that was kind of fun, and the whole family got together and gave her presents and stuff. But my own mother died in 2007, and the questioner asks about resources that I might recommend regarding that. I wrote this book, Zen Wrapped in Karma, Dipped in Chocolate. It is no longer in print, and it was the first of my books, I think, to go out of print, and I'm not in a big hurry to bring it back into print. But that's not because I don't like the book or because I think it's bad. It just has, for me, a lot of pain involved in this. And this is the only book of mine that I haven't done an audiobook for, because I read all of my own audiobooks, and every time I try to start reading this book, I can't get through it. And again, this is not because it's a bad book. I think it's a good book, but I think, one of the problems with the book for me these days is I feel like it chronicles a lot of the mistakes I made after my mother died. And I tried to present myself as not an ideal, example to follow. But I don't know if that came across, and I feel like if I was going to put the book back into print, I'd have to thoroughly rewrite it to make sure that it was very clear that this is not what you should do after your mother dies. And the book is about a lot of other things, especially the commercialization of Zen in America and so forth, which I think are also really good topics. That's the reason for the title, Zen Wrapped in Karma, Dipped in Chocolate. It came from a commercial that I watched on TV, I think for Yoplait yogurt, where somebody said, "This yogurt is so delicious, it's like Zen wrapped in karma, dipped in chocolate." Anyway, so the book is about how I dealt with the death of my own mother, and Mother's Day has always, ever since then, been difficult. It was not... My mother died of a very long and very difficult disease that went on for decades, so Mother's Day was not my favorite of all days for a long time because it has so many associations with that. But I have mostly these days good associations of my mother, and mostly remember the times before she got sick, so that's how it goes. But let's talk about what this questioner is asking about. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot the other resources. If somebody wants to look at what I have to say about deaths of parents. My dad died, 2 years ago, I think? Oh, God. It's hard to remember. I'm getting old. But I did several videos around that time about my dad's death and how I felt about it, and particularly one of these things that the questioner in this email asked about, the sort of bardo state. So for those of you who don't know, who might be new to Buddhism, there are a lot of forms of Buddhism. And in the Tibetan form of Buddhism, there is a quite famous book that usually goes under the title The Tibetan Book of the Dead. And that's the first translation of the book. The translator came up with that groovy title, The Tibetan Book of the Dead. It's really not called The Tibetan Book of the Dead in Tibetan. I think it's called the Bardo Total, like the Journey into the Bardos or something like that. I'm not that familiar with Tibetan Buddhism. But the book lays out a lot of what happens after a person dies and the various states one goes through before being reincarnated. In the Zen form of Buddhism, we generally don't bother with that stuff very much. Dogen wrote an essay which he never finished, which I think is telling, which was called Doshin, which my teacher translated as The Will to the Truth. Other people have translated the essay too, and not too many, actually. This is not one of Dogen's most popular essays, but a couple other people have done it with different titles. But if you go to Book 4 of the Nishijima Cross version of Shobo Genzo, which you can download for free as a PDF from shobogenzo.net, just go there and click around and you'll find the links where you can download the PDF of all of the books of Shobo Genzo in the Nishijima Cross version. In that essay, Dogen lays out a very I don't know if people will get this reference, but the Reader's Digest version of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Reader's Digest was an American magazine that was famous for taking novels and then condensing them, so they would make a short version of novels so that you could read them quicker, which I think is just a funny thing they used to do. Anyway, I don't know if they still do that. But Dogen's version, so the Tibetan Book of the Dead, has chapter after chapter of what happens after you die and where you go and what to do about it and so on and so forth. Dogen reduces that entire thing to about 3 sentences. And he talks about, God, I should have looked it up before I did the video, but vaguely from memory, he talks about how there's 7 days when you're in this realm and 7 days when you're in that realm, and then you're committed to the womb storehouse world, and then you're born again. The point of it is, though, that Dogen is trying to express how very important it is to revere the 3 treasures of Buddhism, which are Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I should probably do a whole video about this, but Buddha is Buddha, Dharma is the teachings of Buddha, and Sangha is the community of Buddhists. And Dogen is saying, it is so important to revere the 3 treasures that you should chant your reverence to the 3 treasures even during all this stuff that happens between one life and another. So, the point of him talking about this is not to say, hey kids, here's what happens after you die. Let me tell you the whole thing about it. You better believe this. It's not that at all. He sort of takes for granted, it seems, that his audience already believes this is what happens after you die, or everybody just kind of knows this. It's very it's presented in a matter-of-fact way. It's like talking about how, I don't know, going to Los Angeles, you take the 10 freeway to the 5, and then you get off at whatever, It's really matter-of-fact. It's like this is just what happens, and then during this, it's like he's saying, when you drive from over here in the Inland Empire to Los Angeles, you should keep chanting the 3 treasures. It's so matter of fact. So he's not trying to say, look, this is what happens after you die. He's just kind of making a reference to it. And in all the volumes of Shobo Genzo and Eihei Koroku and Shobo Genzo Zui Monki and all these other things that he put out, I don't think he ever spends nearly that much energy talking about what happens after you die. It's just like the problem with speculating on what happens after you die is that it's dumb. And it's dumb because... Oh, I thought I heard something moving around in the garden there. Maybe there's a snake. I hope it doesn't bite me. Anyway, the problem with speculating on what happens after you die is that your perceptions of this reality are regarded by Buddhists, and this is what I believe too, your perceptions of reality are all mistaken. 100%. Every bit of perception you have about reality is mistaken, to the point where you could call the material world a kind of an illusion. This is the way we think of it. And then we base our thoughts upon these mistaken perceptions of reality. So then we have this other layer of mistake on top of the first layer of mistake. And so if you're trying to speculate about what happens after you die, you're just putting a mistake on top of another mistake, and you might as well just give the game up, because the best you could possibly do is get a very broad sense of something, but nothing concrete. So I don't worry too much about reincarnation, and I know there's always somebody who'll come bopping into the comments section every time I bring this up and go, "You're not a Buddhist if you don't believe in reincarnation and you don't teach reincarnation." Blah, 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 blah. Uke, I think, is the name of the guy who does the most of it. That's his screen name. But it's just stupid, because it doesn't have anything to do with it. And I am certainly not nearly alone among Buddhists who don't give much space to the whole reincarnation thing. There's worlds and worlds of Buddhists who don't think that reincarnation is that big of a deal. And the Zen form of Buddhism is very strong in that regard. My teacher, in fact, used to say, Nishijima Roshi used to say, there's no such thing as reincarnation. This is just an old Hindu belief that was grafted onto Buddhism. You shouldn't pay any attention to it at all. That was his take on it, and yeah, we could talk about that. But as far as doing rituals for somebody after they've died, which is what our questioner asks about, I actually think this is a very good thing. And I've talked about this in books and in videos already, and I sort of regret having brought it up, but having brought it up already, I can't unbring it up, which is that I've had encounters. I encountered my mom after she died, and I encountered my dad after he died. These were not encounters based on any sort of belief I had about the possibility of meeting somebody after they died. In fact, I was quite skeptical of the matter, but what happened to me was sort of undeniable. And, the short version, I'll give you the quickest version I can. At the very moment that my mother died, she died in a suburb of Dallas, Texas, and I happened to be living in Los Angeles at the time. At the very moment that she died, I woke up with a start hearing John Lennon's song My Mummy's Dead, which is the final song on his Plastic Ono Band album. Just as if somebody had turned on a record player in my room there and played the song. It was loud and clear. Well, not particularly loud, but at full volume and clear, and every word was intelligible, every chord was intelligible. It was all just like somebody was playing the song to me. It felt comforting to hear that. And I remember I just got up and went to the toilet or something and went back to bed. And I woke up a few hours later, and my dad... There's that snake again. My dad was on the phone telling me that my mom had died sometime in the night in her sleep. When my dad died, it was almost the same situation. There was no music involved, but I woke up with a start, bing, straight up in bed the very moment that it turned out he passed away, and feeling like something was up. And I got a call the next morning from my sister that she found out my dad had died that night. There was other details, and you can go look up the various videos. Use Google. Google around on my videos, and you can hear me talk about that if you want. So those things happened. So I feel that there is a connection that we maintain with those who've passed away. And I feel that rituals are a good way to sort of connect. They're good because they're they're not so emotionally charged. They're sort of standardized things you can do. You can look them up. You're on the internet right now, so you can look up on the internet your favorite version of an after-death ritual. If you like the Buddhist versions, do those. If you like the Christian versions, or the Jewish versions, or the Muslim versions, or the African voodoo versions. Voodoo is a legit religion. You can do those instead if you like those. So those are ways to connect. When my dad died, I looked up some rituals because, as I say, we don't in the Zen tradition worry too much about that stuff. So I looked up, what are the standard Zen things to do when somebody dies, and you put a picture up and you light incense in front of it and you bow and you chant the Heart Sutra, and there's a bunch of things you do. And I did those things. I did them for the prescribed time. I looked it up in the Tibetan Book of the Dead for how long you should do. I think I did it every day for 7 days, and then once a week for the next 7 weeks, I think. Something like that. You'd have to look up the details. But I felt that was a good thing to do, and that there was some sort of reciprocal thing happening. I don't want to get too much into the details. As I said, I've already put them out on the videos and things, so if you want to look them up, you can go look them up. But there was some sort of reciprocal thing happening between me and my dad. At the time my mom died was 2007, and I really didn't know exactly what to do, but I did some other similar rituals on behalf of her death as well. I don't remember this back in 2007, so I don't remember specifically what I did as well as I remember what I did after my dad died. So those are the kinds of things you can do, and I feel like it's good. Nisargadatta Maharaj, not a Buddhist, he's a Hindu guy who I happen to admire a lot. He says something in one of his books about that. He says, it's good to do rituals for the people who've passed away. They're flattered by the attention, or something like that. And I think there's this kind of sense where that's sort of true. But I don't like to speculate. What the heck is walking around back there? Is that a mole or something? What are you? I don't know what's back there. I couldn't see anything, but there you go. So, those kind of rituals are useful. Let's see. What else can I say about this? He says, the questioner says, there's a line in Dogen's Life and Death about birth having a past and a future, and extinction having a past and a future. What do you think the future of extinction is? Well, the future of extinction is... Here you go. Here is the future of extinction. Every moment is brought into being by the death of the moment that comes before it. That's kind of the only thing you can say coherent about reincarnation. Is that it's like dominoes falling. Each one falls and it's like things happen in sequence based on the things that have come before. And so this is the future of extinction. This is the future of your extinction of the past. The moment that you started watching this video is as dead as my mom and my dad. And now here is the reincarnation that you're experiencing of that moment. But is it the same moment, or is it a different moment? My first teacher had a metaphor which he didn't make up, but he's the one who told it to me. And he said, as far as reincarnation goes, it's like if you have a flame on a candle and you have a candle without a flame, and then you use, I guess the flame is on this candle, right? Anyway, you use the first candle to light the second candle and immediately blow out the first candle. Is this a new flame, or is it a different flame? So that's the question, and it's obviously an unanswerable question. You don't know. You can't really say it's the same flame. You can't really say it's a different flame. That's the idea behind that. So if you are like the person who wrote to me, and or like me, and you spent Mother's Day yesterday mourning your own passed away mother, well, there you go. There's something for you to think about. It's losing your mother is something that almost all of us will go through if we haven't gone through it already. Most of us die after our mothers. So it's just it's kind of a fact of life, and it's a sad fact, but it's a true fact, and we shouldn't turn away from what is true. So that's about all I can say about that. I hope you had a good Mother's Day. I had a good Mother's Day in spite of the fact that my own mother was not there to celebrate it with me, or maybe she was, but I did celebrate it with my mother-in-law, my wife's mother, so that was very nice. And I hope you had a good day that day too. Did I just say that? I don't know. I'm gonna go see if I can chase this thing out of the weeds here, or whatever it is. I hope it's not a mole, because we've been having problems with those. If you want to donate to me mourning my mother more, you can go to the URL that you are about to see on the screen below, or that you're about to hear if you're listening to the audio version of this thing. It is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That's where you will find links to my Patreon and PayPal accounts. Those are my main and usually my only ways of making a living, and I appreciate your support. But as always, you don't have to support me if you don't want to support me. And remember, those of you who complain about the musical intros, those are shorter and less annoying than the commercials you get on videos where people put commercials on them, and I don't put commercials on mine. So far, I haven't had to, because your donations keep supporting me. So keep supporting me, and I won't have to put commercials on, but you will still get the musical intros, which are much better than those commercials. All right, we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Alright, there's Ziggy. He's not feeling well today. I'm not sure what's wrong. Some kind of stomach upset. I'm keeping an eye on him. He did eat his breakfast this morning, which is a good sign. But then he didn't want to come outside with me, which he usually does. So he just wanted to stay inside, so I guess he's still feeling it. Anyway, hope Ziggy feels better. Hope you feel better, buddy. Okay, let me edit the video and I'll sit with you.